We've got some of Melbourne's most interesting thinkers in the area of design here tonight. They got together and produced a set of questions that we're going to ask to Kyung-won now. But we'd also like to hear your questions, and if you can send them to us on our Twitter, which is #StateOfDesign. Alex will read them out when we get to that part of the night. Please send through your thoughts. We'd love to hear them. If you don't have Twitter, don't worry. We'll also have the traditional microphone, so do think of questions that you'd like to ask Kyung-won or our panel. After the interview, we're going to put a glass of wine in your hand and we're going to unpack the discussion to think about what it is that we've just heard. Is it relevant to us? Is what Kyung-won said something that we can use to pull out and think about how it relates to practice here? So we hope you stay around for part 2. Can I please introduce Soumitri Varadarajan, Michele Azzopardi, Robert Nelson and Alex Lawler, who are going to interview Kyung-won now. And now I'm going to hand over to Soumitri to introduce our guest, and we'll take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I'm going to do a bit of a circuitous introduction. I'm going to introduce a lot of different kinds of things. But first, South Korea. Anybody here been to South Korea? Thank you, Gwangju. She is from South Korea. Fantastic. So, Professor Kyung-won Chung is a continuing professor at KAIST, which is the Korean Advanced Institute for Science and Technology. It's in Daejeon City, which is some distance from Seoul. And if you go onto YouTube and say Daejeon, and you'll have all these foreign students there talking about the most astounding technological marvel in terms of a university. They'll also talk about this high-speed train link between Seoul and Daejeon City. Professor Kyung-won Chung is internationally well known because he's been featured in Business Week, and last year Seoul was the design. Periodically there is a city that's chosen as a design capital, so it was Seoul's turn last year, and there's a lot of very interesting things he says. So I won't introduce a lot of the things he says, but maybe I'll ask for your indulgence a little bit. I actually wrote an introduction to South Korea. Sitting in Melbourne, why would we think of South Korea? I mean, going down the street to Lonsdale Street and having kimchi is one thing, but in terms of design, no, possibly not. All right, so here goes. I'm going to read stuff out. Korea, reason and feeling. Seoul, the capital of the most technologically advanced country on earth. I picked this off from Fast Company. Capital of the most technologically advanced country on earth has embarked on an ambitious project, an audacious project, to use design as a critical feature of the way that Korea is seen and appreciated. A balance of reason and feeling. They, in Korea, brought in Zaha Hadid to produce a spectacular monument to design. Dongdaemun Design Park and Plaza. It cost $359 million to build. It's 85,000 square kilometers. Just the building is 85,000 square kilometers. And the most amazing thing, at least for us in Melbourne, it's in the center of the city, and it replaces a football stadium. How amazing is that? Now that's saying something about culture. It's got an exhibition center, a convention hall, a museum, and a design laboratory. And Professor Chung, as the Deputy Mayor of Seoul, has been at the center of this complete and astounding flowering of Seoul into this amazing sort of place for design. So there are designers from all over the world flocking to Seoul to study, to practice, and essentially to look for work. A balance of reason and feeling. Truly Designomics, economics of design that is big, powerful, and awesome. And this is just the beginning. Feeling and simplicity. Have you traveled on the metro here, not in Seoul, have you traveled on the metro and seen the popularity of the Samsung phone? That's a bit odd because you're only supposed to buy the iPhone because that is the true marvel. But then to see these Samsung phones, I still haven't figured out what it is about them, but obviously there is something going on there. And this is just the beginning. We're not talking about the number of patents that are filed out of South Korea. That is truly astounding. Feeling and simplicity. Seoul, population 10 million. South Korea, population 48 million. Double our size. Now, for Professor Chung, a little bit about Australia. Australia is a country in Asia. And so says the Chinese pole. It took us 100 years to realize it. Some, like the State of Design Festival, let's have a dig at them, have not yet fully realized this. For example, tomorrow there'll be a lecture by a famous graphic designer of the 70s. Sugiura Kohei, you think? Maybe not. We don't know. Now, for Professor Chung, Australian designers make good designers, good workers, good at finishing projects. Korean designers focus on feeling, aesthetics, and big visions. What a fantastic match. Tae-kook, the yin and yang symbol in the South Korean flag, is a window into the spirit of Korean design, balance of the square and the curvy. I'm assuming we are the square. You, Professor Chung, are our first window into Asia in the history of this festival, possibly. It was easy for me to make the case for the festival to invite you. You say many things, you are passionate, you have vision. I was particularly interested in you because you've been nice to Mark Whiting, a former student of mine. Too nice, I think. He's now in a relationship with a Korean girl and doing a PhD after having completed his master's at KAIST. This is fantastic news for us. For you have seen one of our graduates, you have liked what you have seen. We have many more such graduates. Can we send them to you? Better still, why don't we make a project that will give work to our unemployed designers? We have many of them. You can fund our festival. That's a good idea. It only costs a few $1 million. I'm keen to see a big, strong bridge between Seoul and Melbourne, mainly because you have industry, you are growing, you have money. All of these we don't have. Thank you.
Hello. There was some, the line is not that good.
Yeah, it just got cut off, so we're back on track now.
In Daejeon is a heavy rain at this moment, so that probably that's the reason.
Ah, that's very good.
You're being generous already.
Okay. Sorry?
Should we go into
Yes, I'll go into the question. I've got the first question for you, Kyung-won. Design's being promoted around the world as a key contributor to economic growth, with the development of new creative economies seen as addressing economic problems. South Korea has been successful in positioning itself as a national design leader. Can you describe for us the strategies that South Korea has adopted to promote design excellence?
Oh, it's an excellent question. I would like to explain 3 different strategies one by one. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then the first strategy is design for all, not just for selected people, but design for everyone. So we want to have a consensus on the nature of design among Korean peoples, from the bottom of the pyramid to the top of it. The basic concept is that the role of design is, the design is not only for the rich and the luxurious, but also for the poor and necessity as well.
Professor Chung.
The design is a way to upgrade appearance of artifact as well as to improve the quality of life of the people, so that the design is also addresses social, environmental, and the public health issues. So we need some consensus among Korean people. That's the reason the first strategy is design for all. The second one is digital design excellence for enhancing Korean designers' capability for solving design problems by using advanced digital tools. So actually there was a gap between advanced nations and Korea in terms of design standard until 1980s. So we are just in the bottom of the international ranking, in my opinion. So that we are not to narrow up the gap using advanced digital technology. So Korea is we have very highly advanced technologies in terms of design. So that we adopted many computer-aided design courses in our design education, so that we can narrow down the gap between advanced nations and Korea. The Korean government also was very active to establish design innovation centers throughout the nation. But these centers equipped with highly advanced digital design tools like rapid prototyping, 3D modeling, or something like that. So nowadays, we are operating 29 design innovation centers in Korea. Then the third strategy is globalization, to level up the awareness of Korean design in the global context through hosting international design events since 2000. You may remember that Seoul hosted Ikokurada Millennium Congress in Seoul in 2000, and ICSID Congress and General Assembly was in Seoul year 2001. Personally, I hosted that two events as the president of Korea Institute of Design Promotion. Actually, that event was very successful despite of hostile international environment at that time. The 9/11 terror in New York broke out just 1 month earlier than ICSID Congress in Seoul. So we are really worried about there will be no guests from overseas, but actually there are many American people participated in the conference, and it was very successful. The most recently, the World Design Capital 2010 in Seoul was last year. As the Chief Design Officer of the Seoul Metropolitan Government, I also hosted that event, and it was also very successful. So I will explain a little bit later regarding the World Design Capital. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I was a guest. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes?
Can you press the video on your Skype so we can see you?
But unfortunately, I cannot see my image on my screen.
Yes, can you press video?
Oh, yes. Can you see?
Yes. Yeah, we can see you now.
Okay, thank you. I'm very sorry about that.
Thank you. Yes, I attended as a guest.
It's better.
Sorry?
It's better.
Okay. Yes, much better. I was going to say I attended as a guest to the World Design Capital last year in Seoul and enjoyed it very much. It was very professional and informative, so thank
Great.
you. I've got a second question for you. You've developed the term Designnomics. Can you tell us what that means and how you've used it?
Yes. The term Designomics are relatively new one to many people. It is a combined world of design plus economics. It aims to enhance the power of design in order to maximize economic benefit. So I believe that the role of design in the economy is closely related to the GDP per capita. So when the GDP per capita is less than 10,000 in the poor stage, no one pay much attention to design. The price is the most crucial factor, determinant factor for people buy something. But over 10,000 in the GDP per capita, the people started to concern about the quality of the product. So if the GDP is over 20,000, then design becomes the most crucial determinant for buying product or services. So Korea is in that situation, so that we mainly focused on design to improve the quality of life as well as the competitiveness of Seoul as well as Korea. Yes, it is the very awkward word, but it's a combination of design plus economics.
Okay, thank you.
And it is also Seoul's catchphrase for promoting the design industry. So in order to stimulate small and medium-sized enterprises, the use of design for having competitive advantages over the rival, so that the Seoul Metropolitan Government assisting design consulting companies for upgrading their capabilities for providing appropriate services to small and medium-sized companies. So for example, we provided a special fund loan for design companies with lower interest rates, and they pay back for 5 years. So the condition was very good for them. Then the total amount was $45 million for 4 years. So we supported over 400 design consulting firms with that fund. So it was very, very helpful for Korean design consulting company to overcome the recession.
Very good.
Part of that strategy, we set design clusters in thriving design areas in Seoul. So actually, we have 4 design clusters in Korea at this moment. When we designated certain areas as a design cluster, then we provide various incentives, including tax reduction, building to land ratio, and height limitation or something like that. So it's really advantageous for design companies to expand their facilities or something like that. So we also have design promotion offices in each cluster under the Designnomics policy. So is it understandable for you?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
So
great.
it's operated, so there's these clusters, and is it operated and directed, I guess, through the Seoul Design Centre or through the Seoul Foundation? Is that right?
Yes. Seoul Design Foundation is a subsidiary of Seoul Metropolitan Government.
Okay.
And Design Seoul headquarters set strategies and policies at the government level in Seoul. Then the Seoul Design Foundation is operating or implementing that policy or strategies
Okay,
in
fantastic.
practice.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of child organization of Seoul Metropolitan Government.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Is this mostly product design and industrial design companies that are supported?
Not just for industrial or product design companies, but visual communication, environmental design, no discrimination between design disciplines.
Yeah.
But mainly, a product design company can get, could get the support, but no discriminations.
And you're mainly working with small to medium businesses, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
With the design consultancies.
Oh yes, we have over 1,700 design consulting companies
Yes.
in Seoul, but usually they are very small in size, not that big. That's the problem, and that's why we support them with the operating money.
Thank you.
Are most of them KAIST graduates?
Pardon?
Are most of them
Oh, you are?
KAIST graduates?
Pardon?
Are most of them graduates from KAIST?
The people who work in the consultancies,
Ah, yeah.
are they your people?
Oh, okay, sorry. Well, Actually, the KAIST is a relatively younger university. We have only 20-year history, so that the majority of our graduates are in a university as professors, as well as they work with in-house designer. The only few graduates are working in the design consulting industry. So, for example, one of my students in my design management lab, he is operating a medium-sized design consulting firm for 10 years. But his business is not so luxury. Okay, but yeah, some graduates are working in the design consulting business.
I have, in the list of questions, I'm going to ask you the question number 3. Is design in the future going to be less about products and more about services? Is Seoul in particular increasing its focus on design towards improving services?
That's right. Yes, I'm quite agree with you. Design is not just for hardware. The importance of software and human error, that means service, becomes more crucial. The designing hardware was rather simple, because it is visible and tangible. But the software and the service is very, very difficult to design, because it is invisible and intangible. However, Korean companies are increasingly paying much attention to service design and software design, as well as hardware design. We used to pay attention to hardware itself, but nowadays we have to integrate hardware, software, and human error. So Design Seoul also focus on total design that integrates 3 elements of design. So there was a big changes in personal management in terms of systems design in Seoul Metropolitan Government. We used to have a personal management system mainly based on seniority. The elder people, the older staff can be promoted faster than the younger people. So it's just a seniority. But the new personal management system is mainly based on the capacity and outcome, so that the younger people can be promoted in his position to compare with the elder people. So that system was very helpful to upgrading the quality of the people's work. And we also have a very excellent public telephone service systems. The name is 120 Dasan Call Center. So 120 means just to dial 120. Then you immediately connect to the telephone agent who provide you right answer just within a couple of minutes. So usually we use 46 ALS services. So it was very difficult to connect to right public officers. But the new system is very convenient. People can immediately connect to the agent, and they can get the right answer within a couple of minutes. So can you show the images of Dasan call, please? Yes, that's one. The name Dasan stems from a famous politician and writer for catering life of people in Korea in the 18th century. The name stems from that politician. And we maintain and updating over 31,000 database. Can you see the image?
Yes.
Yes, and we also have over 200 consultants with online search expertise. So that there are many consultants or agents in the office, and when Seoul people dial 120, it immediately connected to the agent, then they give the answer. So for foreigners, when you connected to 120, then press 9, then immediately you can connect with the foreign language speaking agent.
Yep.
So that now it is very, very popular. So daily call center is over 23 million calls last year. It's very easy and convenient telephone consulting service.
Yep.
So we call it a systems design or a service design in practice.
Yep.
And it works quite well. Design is not just for hardware or physical things, but the combination of software and service and hardware.
Yep.
Okay?
I'm going to ask you the next question, and this relates to a lot of interviews you have done where you have talked about changing design education in Korea, that it needs
Yes.
to change. So my question for you is design education in Korea modern? And if yes, can you describe some of the innovations or the new innovations in design education?
Okay. As the university professor for 20 years, I'm very happy to have this question. Actually, the Korean design education belongs to art and craft education until the 1980s. So usually the people regarded design as a part of art education.
Yep.
But nowadays it was totally changes. Especially industrial design program at KAIST was a pioneer of integrated design education since 1986. IB KAIST belongs to engineering school, but we don't use the term engineering in the name of our department.
Mm-hmm.
Some engineers urged me to use engineering, like industrial design engineering, in the name of my department. When we started our program, I refused it in order to maintain the nature of industrial design. If we use engineering, that there are some possibility for losing our identities at that time. So that we provided a curriculum of well-balanced with the science, engineering, art, and business. We also specialized in computer-aided industrial design and design management, interaction design, etc. So simply, we wanted to educate the highly gifted Korean students managing capabilities for design. So we wanted to cultivate future design managers or chief design officers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that our education was well accepted by international design community. So that it included in the list of 30 world best design schools by Business Week in 2009.
Yeah.
And there is another radical cross-disciplinary approach to design education in Korea. It is Ulsan Institute of Science and Technology. It's a very similar university, but relatively new. It started in 2009.
Yeah.
So they combine industrial design, human factors engineering, and engineering design, and then provide 3 specialized tracks like integrated industrial design, effective human factors engineering, and engineering and systems design. So it's really complicated. So probably we can see some slides. Images, please. Yeah, this is the vision of Department of Industrial Design at KAIST. Currently, we are world top 30 design schools, but we want to be world top 5 creative design centers in year 2025 by converging human, business, and technology, really based on creativity. This is a vision of ID KAIST.
Yeah.
But the UNIST has a very complicated curriculum system like that. On the next slide, please. Next slide.
Next
yes.
slide.
Okay, next one, please. Yes, that one. It's a very complicated system, but actually there are 3 tracks: integrated industrial design, engineering systems design, and effective human engineering. So that it's a typical engineering-based industrial design education, but I don't know what will happen in this program, because it just started just 2 years ago, and some of our graduates are there as a faculty member. So that I'm also very curious what will be the product of that program.
Yeah. So how is the Samsung Design School different?
Yes, I think it's a good question. SADI is a Samsung design school. Is not the regular design college or university.
Yeah.
So they focused on fashion design and product design and graphic design or something like that. And they provide 3-year courses, 3-year program for training designers. So that it's slightly different from this kind of radical integrated education in design.
Thank you. Who is better? You don't have to answer that.
The next question is about design's relationship to identity, and in particular to cities' identities. So the value of increasing a city's brand value and identity internationally is a much discussed and debated subject. Has any work been done to measure the value created by Seoul's status as World Design Capital in 2010? Can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
As you know that Seoul was the last World Design Capital year 2000, the first World Design Capital last year. And because of that project, the Seoul's reputation as a world-class design city has been widespread. The Seoul was frequently featured in world-class media like New York Times, Business Week, Newsweek, CNN, and Wallpaper and other leading design magazines. Especially New York Times picked Seoul as the 3rd places to go in the world in 2010. It is actually first place to go in Asia. The Seoulite are confident of the achievement of Design Seoul as World Design Capital, because that project was the symbolic project of Design Seoul since 2007. So the success of World Design Capital was very helpful for Seoul citizens for having confidence in design. we undertook over 150 events in relation to World Design Capital project, so that there is a economic impact was also meaningful. According to the Institute for Industrial Policy Studies Research, the WDC has contributed to enhance the brand value of Seoul up to 500 million US dollar. It's a huge amount of money, but we invested only 18 million US dollar for that project since 2007.
Yeah.
So that the is over 40 folds economic effect was achieved by that project.
Good return.
Yes.
It's a brand value, in terms of brand value. And Seoul became the UNESCO Creative City of Design last year.
Yeah.
So that now we can use the logo of UNESCO Creative Design City. Can you show the image of the logo of UNESCO Creative City Seoul? Yes, actually that one is a combination of UNESCO logo and Seoul logo. Can you see the gate? Is the gate for the main palace of Joseon Dynasty, and the hachi is a symbol of Seoul, the imaginative animal that protects Seoul. So that we can use these images, these logos, as the symbol of the UNESCO Creative Design City Seoul. So it is very useful for us as international marketing devices.
Fantastic. Okay.
Professor, can I ask a question? I was very impressed with the way you explained so simply, and it seemed to me very compelling how design counts in a purchase if the economy is reasonably prosperous. And it seemed to me that that's just a very, very necessary thing to say to a state, an industrial state. But you seem to have succeeded in a way that goes beyond saying things like that. You've created a whole lot of symbols and infrastructure. The example of all those design consultancies which seem to have a kind of network is good. You've also achieved these very tangible monuments, like, for instance, the Dongdaemun Design Plaza, which I didn't know, Soumitri, that replaced a football stadium. That's impressive. I too was fortunate enough to go to Seoul, and it's very beautiful, very busy. As we were saying before, you could fit 2 Australian populations in your city. So to achieve that real estate, that's very impressive in itself. But I wanted to ask you about your choice of Zaha Hadid and her design. So this is what we thought of as question number 6. And that is, it's very beautiful, organic form. It's a kind of building as object in space, very emphatically a design object. But it struck me as curious that you did choose that, because there it is set up as a symbol of design that's also, in a way, insular, because it speaks to itself. It doesn't talk to the busy hubbub of the streets of Seoul, but situates itself as this utopian ideal in the middle of a garden. And I just wondered about what made you choose that particular design.
Okay, it's a very complicating question. However, the population of Seoul is slightly over 10 million, and just half of total population of Australia is right.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of Greater Seoul. Isn't it very much larger than 10?
Greater Seoul is about 20 million or something like that. But anyway, Seoul is really condensed city with the people. So that it is very difficult to make a decision for building a design landmark in Seoul. It's risky and it's very difficult. Simply, the price of property is very, very expensive, as you mentioned. However, we have to do that project. Even we have to invest a huge amount of money, like over 400 million US dollar, and there was a lack of consensus among many interested parties before we started that project. So there are some criticisms from opposition party or some analysis. However, there was a strong need for revitalizing the abandoned sports stadium. So actually, it is a really historic area in Seoul. In Joseon Dynasty, in 15th century, there was an advanced military school was there in that particular area. So it's really meaningful for Korean people for the defense of Seoul. However, Japanese colonial government removed that historic places and to build a public stadium in 1926. After that, it became the basis for modern Korean sports, as you mentioned, like football and baseball. It, however, lost its function since 1988. The Summer Olympic Games Seoul was held. We built huge stadium in the southern part of Seoul, and it lost its function. The stadium was full of small sports shops as well as restaurants. So simply no use, but the place is very, very expensive. So that the mayor decided to revitalize that area by building some design monumental buildings for future. And it was not just to give for the commissioned the project to Zaha Hadid. There was a designated international design competition in year 2007, and 8 architects from home and abroad, 4 from home and 4 from abroad participated in the competition. Actually, they invited to the competition, and there was a severe competition among 8 proposals, but Zaha Hadid one won the race. Simply, we didn't expect Zaha Hadid's work won, or any Korean architect could won. However, the Zaha Hadid one got the first place, and mayor accepted the jury's recommendation without any kind of comment. That's the behind the story. So it's a very really fair and objective game. Okay. Probably we'd better to see that the images of Dongdaemun Design Plaza. Only the rendering is available, something like this. It's very elegant and beautiful building, but it's very difficult to build. Here is a huge hump, but there is no pillar to support. So it's very difficult to build. Next slide, please.
Next slide.
Next slide, please. That's the park area. So it's a combination of plaza and park. Then, next slide, please. Yes. Yes, something like this. Next slide, please. Okay. Can you see the progresses of construction there?
Yeah.
Yes. It was taken by just 10 days ago, and about 60% of construction is done at this moment. But it takes time because it's very difficult to build. It's a cantilever structure, as well as there is panels. Panels are totally different from with each other. We have to make panels one by one. So that it's very, very difficult to build. And this is, can you see another image, please? Can you show? Okay. Yes, that's why it takes time. And next to July, in year 2012, the building itself will be completed. And after operation, trial operation, the design plaza will open the spring of 2013. So that it's a huge investment. So we hope the project would be beneficial for the Seoul.
What a great symbol. I just wish I could be there at the opening.
Thank you.
Oh, it's lovely. Now that you've got somebody, an Iraqi architect, so you should go and build something in Iraq. Maybe some, you can invite some.
Actually, she's from Iraq, but she studied architecture in London, and she is English, I think.
Yes. Very good. So, do you have a system in place for getting international designers? So that is architecture, you have a competition. But in terms of design, which is not usually through competitions, do you have some sort of a process of inviting international designers or similarly promoting local Korean designers to work overseas or locally?
Well, actually, majority of Design Seoul projects have been commissions to local designers through open competition.
Yeah.
Almost over 90% of design projects are commissioned to local designers, not international architects or designers. However, there was no discrimination in the competition regarding gender, age, race, nationality. For the objectivity of assessment as well as the transparency of selection. Still, the local designers are very strong in that competition, so that the new Seoul City Hall is a really huge building. And it's a really nice designed building, but it is designed by Korean architects. And Ark Island in Han River is also designed by Korean architect. So that the Dongdaemun Design Plaza is a sort of exceptional case. And we provide some spaces for young designers or designers for operating their own business for 1 year. It's a sort of incubation system for them. So that we are the 45 studios are available at this moment, and there are additional facilities like meeting rooms, library, equipment lab, photo studio, storages for common use. So it is really convenient for young designers to start their business. And we also have excellent design idea commercialization assistance. If a young designer or a design company have an excellent idea, then we support the marketing techniques, or we support for them to solve their legal problems, the patent or something like that. We also provide some assistance in terms of production, so that it is very helpful for them to commercialize their ideas into reality. Also, we support them to go abroad to participate in international design fair, like 100% London or New York Design Festival or something like that. So that system works quite well, so that younger generation of designers can start their business. Also, they can get a variety of support from government.
Yeah. Now, it is not one of the questions, but I want to ask you a question. Why don't we make a project for Australian industrial designers to be supported to get projects in South Korea, on Seoul?
Wow, it's a great idea.
It's a very good idea.
We can collaborate
Yeah.
in international cooperation between Australia and Korea. I believe that it would be great.
So every year we send students on exchange to KAIST, and you have
Yes,
Mark
it's good.
Whiting, who's one of our graduates at KAIST.
Yes.
He's now doing his PhD.
Already we have one,
Yes.
as Peter.
Yes.
Peter. Yes, he works quite well, but he wanna go to United States, in my knowledge.
He's going to be in South Korea. He has South Korea. Seoul is very important for Koreans because it's a city of love, or love is very important. And I think our student has found love, so he's going to stay there. Yeah. Fantastic.
One of the things it seems that Koreans love is design. And you have created this blossoming of infrastructure to facilitate it, which is the envy of the world. But I'm wondering what else you've done, to follow the earlier question, that is almost like the software, the spirit that you create programs and you know people will come. There are conversations happening all the time. The buildings that you've made are not empty. People are in attendance and are eager to learn and discuss. How have you done that?
It's another very tough question. Anyway, as the deputy mayor of Seoul, who were in charge of culture, design, and tourism until last May, I was deeply concerned about the sustainability of newly built infrastructures. So mainly because, as you mentioned, there are many of new infrastructures of design, art, culture are being built in Seoul in recent years. So for example, art factories, houses for literature, museums, performing art halls, etc. are being built in Seoul, as well as we have a plan to build 50 open art theaters until 2014. Then altogether, it's 100 open art theaters throughout the Seoul. So simply, there are so many infrastructures are being built, so that we have to carefully think about the sustainability of such infrastructures. However, there are less worries about over-emptying such new infrastructures, mainly because Seoul is still suffering from the shortage of such infrastructures. Seoul is a relatively young city, so we only focused on economic development during the last 40 years, so that there is only few infrastructures in terms of culture, art, or something like that. Then the new infrastructures are purpose designed. Every facility has its own function. Also, many of cultural organizations, like social enterprises or small artist group, eager to enter the infrastructures, new infrastructures, so that the less worries about the empty of the buildings. So we promote various softwares, exhibitions, performance, concert, or something like that. The first one is talent sharing programs. So we invite some amateur artists to share their talent, and we also provide some customized art programs for kids, youth, and elderly. Also, we're stimulating the voluntary art service programs. We're also fostering the creative culture industry, like Seoul Art Venture Project. We are nurturing 300 social enterprises in culture by 2014, so that we need more infrastructures. We are hungry for more infrastructures, in my opinion.
Seems a picture of constantly escalating enthusiasm.
Yes.
Amazing. A miracle.
Thank you.
Well, all too often I hear a discourse about design which is fundamentally negative. And it goes along these lines, that nations are in competition with one another, that they're seeking the market share that another nation already has, and because manufacturing is a critical element in export performance, design needs to be cultivated. It sounds to me negative, although it's true, that it can't be denied. But the way that Korea has gone about this strikes me as positive, and that I think you personally have done a lot through the globalisation, the Committee for Globalisation Policy. It seems to me that certainly what I look upon with envy is the way that you've fostered a design culture, and that this, even if it didn't have the economic benefits that in a way we sell for the sake of policy, that it has huge cultural and personal benefits for the education of the individual, for the interest in symbols, the interest in aesthetics. I just wondered if this was also something dear to your heart, that you think about in cultivating design policy.
Yes, this question is closely related to the first question, and I'm really thankful for you for giving me an opportunity for explaining more immaterial side of design soul revolution. So firstly, recently we pay much attention to fun design for making Seoul with witty and humorous city. Seoul used to be a prosaic and uninteresting city during the rapid industrialization. So the city covered with gray, similar apartment, and the pavement is covered with concrete. And simply, it is not people-friendly city. So we wanted to change the city of fun city with humorous and witty content. So I developed Seoul Fund Design Guidelines just a couple of months ago. So the many departments in Seoul Metropolitan Government adopt that guidelines to make some interesting facilities in Seoul, so that the citizens as well as tourists will enjoy unexpected joy and experience in Seoul in a couple of years' time. The second aspect is active design guidelines for healthy life. So Seoul used to pay much attention to public hygiene to protect infectious diseases like cholera or something like that. But nowadays, no more such a kind of concern. We pay attention to diet of people of Seoul, so that we have a policy for making park or playground for jogging or walking within 5 minutes distance from home. So there are many parks establishing, so that the active design guidelines is very helpful for building really good parks around Seoul. And finally, we have a smoke-free Seoul campaign. So no one can smoke, even on the street and park as well. And finally, we have a policy for helping socially weak people by design. Usually there are conflicts between these from various disabled. For example, the braille block on the street for blind is really good for blind, but it can be a barrier for wheelchair-bound handicapped, as well as for the elderly. So we need some compromising when we design the kind of items. So we developed comprehensive design guidelines for barrier-free Seoul, mainly based with the conference between different types of disabled. So that we are preparing design guidelines for facilities for socially weak people like elderly, pregnant women, handicapped, kids, the poor, and even foreigners who can't speak Korean. So that this part is more important than enhancing the competitiveness of industrial product in Seoul. But it is relatively not well known to the peoples of the world, I think.
We're running out of time, and we've got a couple of tweet questions. The first one was, can you provide some comment on what you think the major differences are between design methodologies in the East and the West, and what you think Australian designers can learn from this?
The main difference between design methodologies in West and East is not easy to answer. But I studied industrial design in Korea, then go to United States for getting my master's, then I go to the United Kingdom for getting my doctorate. So I experienced both West and East in terms of design methodology. So in my opinion, there is no big differences between East and West in terms of design methodology itself, because we usually use common tools and we adopted common processes for solving problems. But attitude is probably the difference is attitude towards design. So in my opinion, Korean people are more, Korean people pay much attention to the end product rather than process. Up to last decade, but nowadays it is changing. We also very much pay attention to the process itself to make a good result.
And there was
That's
one...
one difference.
Sorry. There was one other question which was in the context of your earlier comments about design consensus and design for everyone.
Yes.
And then how does, the politics, the normal, municipal politics and planning issues that we all have to deal with influence the work you're doing in Seoul?
Yes. I already explained that issue for the last questions. We pay attention to the design for socially weak people. It is not just a political campaign. We developed design guidelines for them, and then design guideline immediately applied to the real project, so that the quality of facilities will upgraded that fit to the need of handicapped or elderly or socially weak people. So that design is not simply for the rich, or design is for facelifting for artefact, but it is for improving the quality of life of the people by enhancing the human side of artifacts. It's my opinion.
Well, we might cut it there. That's a beautiful note to end on, Kyung-won. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking Kyung-won Chung.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd like now to introduce you to our moderator for this session, Carolyn Barnes from Swinburne University. We're also joined by Alex Lawler, Jeffrey London, Michele Azzopardi, and Soumitri Varadarajan. Let's take it away.
I'm going to be quite brief in my summary so that everyone gets a chance to talk. Last, I think it was Thursday night, I was at an event at the Hub at Donkey Wheel House at the bottom of Burke Street, and it was called Ideas for Melbourne. It was led by Adam Brandt, and there was a room packed with about 70 people putting up ideas for Melbourne. And the really interesting thing is, when everyone presented from the groups that they were working with, every single idea needed design to be realised, whether it was interface design, urban planning, architecture, communication design. And most of the people there weren't designers, but they were really actively talking about design. So I thought that's a really good link to what we've heard this evening. Because obviously what's happened in Korea is this concerted and highly coordinated effort to develop design, but also use design as an agent of social development. So, the discussion started with economics and, how design can really sort of prime economic development, prosperity. But, then we started to hear about how they did these things. So, as much as they're hoping to get money from promoting design, they're also spending a lot of money. And I mean, this notion of the support for young design consultancies and designers, and so Professor Chung's idea of, globalisation, and that Koreans have to engage with the world and you have to send the designers overseas. And then he starts talking about social design and design for social innovation. And then he starts talking about new design universities that are sitting on the cutting edge, and with engineering and cognitive psychology and technology, and that's the basis of the program. Then we hear about architecture, regeneration of the urban fabric, and you go, okay, this is what they put together is a really serious package here, which I suppose is a challenge to Melbourne and to Victoria. I've also been lucky enough to be in Helsinki twice this year, and they're going to be the World Design Capital in 2012, and exactly the same story. Like, I met a lot of the key design people over there who've been working away for 30 years to really develop this society that's very, very design focused, and their focus on entrepreneurship and nurturing young design talent, you know, truly amazing. So I suppose what I'm interested in the panel talking about is, you know, what they think are the lessons for Melbourne here, and maybe also, you know, how well Melbourne's going. So, you know, along this path, you know, is there anything that we can take? And is there a possibility of us putting together a collaborative program that could really boost design in this state? So I might throw it over to Michele first, because you're sort of, you know, there at the coalface in the hot seat.
Well, design's certainly been identified as a real enabler to innovative economies, and, you know, manufacturing alone can't exist the way it's existed for many years, and, you know, we're always looking for differentiation on how economies can improve themselves. So somewhere like Korea has successful companies like Samsung. They have huge budgets for contributing to design policies. I mean, certainly in Victoria, you know, over the last, since 2002, there's been $25 million spent on design, whereas I think the professors mentioned $80 million in 2007 that was just spent on, you know, the design world capital. It costs a lot of money to be part of, you know, that club of cities. So we don't have that sort of money here that would certainly be contributed to design policies. And there's moves on an Australia front, a federal front for lobbying towards a design policy, and I think that's really positive. But it's really across lots of areas, from the crafts all the way to technology sides of things. And we're a smaller economy, and I think it is one where we have to collaborate across all the different industries and across the different sectors in order to get something up. But Victoria's certainly led the way, I think, over the last few years in terms of programs that have delivered design outcomes, and more around Design Victoria has been a promotion agency, if you like, for design in the state, where, you know, our mandate's been around building the awareness of the benefits of design to industry. So it's not just about design for designer's sake, it is about economic benefit, it is about social benefit, it is about environmental benefit, and it can manifest itself in lots of ways. And I guess in terms of all the different wicked problems and social problems that are out there, design has a role to play.
Great. Okay. Jeffrey, would you like to talk about the built environment?
I really enjoyed the idea of incubating young designers. I think that's a fantastic possibility. And if you could do it in a setting that allowed a great deal of cross-fertilisation across disciplinary areas, I think you'd get a really rich outcome. I'm not originally a Victorian, so I can make some observations about Victoria. And I think Victoria is doing pretty well compared with many other parts of Australia. Queensland and South Australia are now coming up a pace. But Victoria has done very well over the years in my area, which is architecture and urban design. And I think back on when I first started visiting Melbourne, 25, 30 years ago, the city of Melbourne was pretty moribund. And
it's not changed.
Well, it has changed. I disagree. I live in the middle of the city. I live over the road. And I think the city has changed considerably over the years, and I think a lot of that has had to do with design intervention that has occurred. I think simple things, relatively simple things, that the city has imposed, such as widening footpaths to allow people to walk on the paths more comfortably, use the footpaths for sitting out, planting trees down certain streets, putting down a uniform layer of paving that says, we honour you as a visitor to our city. We're not going to give you any bit of old rubbish. We're going to give you something that is quite special and is distinctive to this city. I think all of that contributes, and it all comes out of design decision-making. I think there has been a policy over successive governments of using design competitions to produce some pretty interesting built form outcomes. And again, from my observation from outside the city, Melbourne has always been a place that is prepared to build its design ideas. I come from a place which is Perth, which I could characterise more as a kind of make-do culture in terms of its built environment. It comes from a different kind of colonial background, and it used convicts from the 1850s to generate a public works process. And it always had that kind of make-do mentality behind it. There was a lack of willingness to celebrate public space and public buildings. I think there's been a history of celebration here. I mean, all we need to do is look at some of the local town halls and look at South Melbourne, look at Fitzroy, Collingwood. These are pretty magnificent edifices, and they're all bigger than the Central Perth Town Hall. It demonstrates that there was always a grand ambition for the place, and I think it's that ambition that we need to harness, and I think design can help deliver that.
You've got a spectacular jail. Ned Kelly and stuff.
Well, in Western Australia there's a spectacular jail too. The convicts built it for themselves.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Soumitri, you're training, teaching, educating industrial designers, and I think you made a comment about how difficult it was for industrial designers once they get out of education. So some of the proposals that
we
the professor had?
produce very good baristas.
Baristas.
Yeah. Number one. I'd like to turn things around a little bit, and I think Michele's been doing quite a spectacular job at Design Victoria. She's never been given any money, so it's like housekeeping mostly. But we've had a conversation now since 2004 when I said all we need is an employment agency. The jobs are overseas. The designers are here. Let's just get them the jobs. Haven't I said that?
You have.
Time and again. I said, shut everything down. Have a China desk, have a South Korea desk, and we'll do the most astounding work. But then along comes, Lynn Kosky or Gavin Jennings, and I don't know, they brought in a 1960s mindset. No, Korea is fantastic. We're sitting here because we've got somebody from Korea who spoke to us. Now, what didn't sort of come across was you actually only saw a photograph of kimchi. You didn't taste it. So that's the whole thing. Korea is just the most spectacular place. It's got a thing called Korean Confucianism. When you look and you have to compare what we do here, and there was that question about process versus product, it's that there's juice there, and we're very dry. So we focus on utility, and they focus on romance. And they've got a history that goes back 2,000 years. It's that end of the Silk Route. So I think there is a certain sense of complacency that we have here. So we try and make do with what we have between our lattes and Chardonnays. But the fact is that we don't have work, and I think we need to sort of wake up to the fact that it's all right to be situated between, beef and mining, but the fact is that they're very close to us are these absolutely astounding economies, which even in our lifetime are runaway horses. South Korea is so rich. It is so incredibly rich. Okay, they have farmer suicides. We're not going into the non-urban South Korea, but the simple fact is that in terms of going on to design, which is of so little relevance in the South Korean mind, it's down there for their economy. But having taken care of everything else and produced squillions of Samsung, LG screens for all of us to buy, and basically taken over the patent regime for all of electronics, they finally said, let's throw a little bit of money at design, just a little bit, which is like, I don't know, $600 million for one little sort of football stadium renovation or something like that. They have an astounding amount of money, and every time you buy a screen, anything, an iPhone or whatever, the money is going right back to Seoul. So he's very, very humble, but that man is a monster in what he can command. And the fact is that the whole business in this sort of century is that the East has to get some sort of an acknowledgement from the West. Now, I think Australia is an Asian country. It's like saying you get up in the morning and you don't know where you are. You become teleported into this locality. To find out where you are, you go and ask the others, where is this? And they say, oh, this is Footscray. So I'm in Footscray. So you get up from Australia, the nearest neighbor, where am I? That's Asia. So we must be Asia. And apparently in China, they think we're Asia. So there were, I think there is a point in sort of having the deputy mayor of Seoul. He's got a project, but I think our thing is to sort of try and see that we know so little about Korea. We are so blinded. We're sort of looking far away at the West, at a dead sort of design culture. There is no manufacturing, but we still sort of, our legitimacy essentially comes from Europe. These guys have the money. Money also speaks. And they have culture, very, very old culture. So I think there isn't any problem there. There is a lack in us. I should stop. Focus on my wine.
Yeah, but I mean, we do have some, we do have some industries that are very prosperous. Like, for example, mining and the engagement between design and mining. I mean, that could be an incredible partnership. But and that's something I've seen work in Finland as well. But some of those linkages aren't made, and so often it's at the small consultancy, consumer product level that we're thinking about design. But maybe industrial designers, ought to be working with mining companies or service designers or something like that. Like, we ought to look at the industry that we do have, and forge partnerships there. We haven't actually got that long to go, so I'm just wondering whether do we have some tweeting happening there?
Oh,
or are you going to talk about?
I've been tweeting, but I think the issue is that we think of design, and we were having this discussion during the break, is that the conventional thought about design is very project-based, but I think that in terms of internal kind of localised urban revitalisation and regeneration, how we project into our region, which we need to acknowledge, is that design is not just about what something looks like or what paint are we going to colour this room with. It's about how all our systems integrate with each other and create the city, our social services, our transport systems. That's all design. And I think what Kyung-won has actually, talked about in a small degree is how he's kind of cracked that in terms of, getting that integration into the city of Seoul and just sort of eliminating some of the walls that we put up between different areas of design. It's all design.
Could I just quickly pick up that issue of the mining companies? I think there is a brilliant opportunity there, because we still have vast amounts of fly-in, fly-out workforce numbers in Australia at the major mining companies. And that leaves the local communities in a pretty bereft state. It forces up prices in the local communities so that people can't afford to stay there effectively. It doesn't leave a real legacy of community as a result of all the people who fly in, fly out. And the wealth is transferred from one part of Australia to another part of Australia.
And they pay very little tax.
Yeah. So there is a fantastic opportunity to construct new communities if you could convince the mining companies to take that stand. And I would have thought that arguments can be created that it is in their economic interest to do so, apart from any moral or ethical legacy that might allow them to leave.
Oh, I mean, completely.
A great opportunity for design.
Yes.
Across the board.
And that, and probably requires design leaders to be talking at board level with people in mining companies about, about what's possible.
Yeah.
So I think for Australia, it's a lot of the linkages that haven't been made, and design sort of a bit compartmentalised. People have a view of it. It's in a bit of a box. It needs to break out of that and move further into society. But I was just thinking, do we have any questions or comments that anyone in the audience would like to contribute?
One thing that Kyung was talking about was that idea of design being there for everybody. And one thing that he particularly touched on just quickly that I thought was very interesting was the idea of design not just being for the rich and the luxurious, but for the poor and the disadvantaged. And I just, like, I remember seeing as part of the State of Design Festival, there's a poster, and it's from RMIT, and it's to do with, I think it's starting on the 4th of August, about getting designers and together talking about how we can look at solving homelessness in Melbourne using design ideas, and how that, like a think tank of how that can be brought together. And I suppose, yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with this anymore, but it's something that I found very interesting, and I guess, yeah, do you have any comments on that to further that idea along, possibly? Yeah, thank you.
I've got a simple question to your question, and I know I keep telling my son, don't answer my questions with your questions, but obviously you putting a value judgment like the organisers of the State of Design that homelessness is bad. So that's fundamentally how many people live in homes and how many live outside. So why shouldn't we all become a bit more homeless? And somebody told me something day before yesterday, after one of the other State of Design events. They said, what's with the Indians? Why are the homeless and the big issue vendors making a beeline for the Indians? I said, that's very interesting. I've never noticed that. He said, I've always seen it. They ignore everybody, and they said, there's an Indian, let's go to him. Why? Because Indians always pay beggars. That's how you've grown up. So you say, here's $5 or here's $10, take a break. And then you feel really good about it. So I don't know if homelessness is such a horrible thing.
But whether it is a horrible thing or not, I think one thing I'd add about, I'd see as slightly problematic designers coming in and providing solutions for other people, and I think, like, certainly since the late 1970s, there's been a huge movement of participatory design where you actually bring the stakeholders in, and now that's sort of flowed over into fields like participatory innovation, and it's problematic. I don't think everyone's worked out the methods, but I think there's a big shift in design that designers don't know everything. They don't have the solutions. Design maybe isn't a problem-solving thing. It's a process where you involve other people, and that's a big shift. And the move of design into social innovation. So, I think it was very strong that he was saying that whatever's happening in Seoul or Korea, it's a multi-pronged thing. It's multilateral, it's integrated, and it's moving right across society. And that's a big thing to pull off, isn't it, really, when you...
But I would query that issue about design not being a way of solving problems. One of the things that we worked on very closely in, say, for example, in the Dandenong revitalisation was using design techniques and methodology, not just, as I was saying before, around, what paving we're going to use or what the streetlights should be, but also aligning urban regeneration with the measurable aspirations of the local community, and also looking at local economic regeneration and how design or what governments or local agencies can intervene in that local economy. And that's quite often through, as Jeffrey was saying, very simple things like drinking fountains or rubbish bins or nice seating so that people have somewhere to sit. It can translate into those very localised kind of design interventions, but I think there's a broader issue about designers using what's between their ears and how they approach problems in a much broader context.
Can I jump into... I want to say something about South Korea, because I think I'm sort of now having second thoughts about inviting him on board to State of Design, saying, why did I sort of campaign so long? Because it's all wrong. Everybody's going to go away from this event thinking, oh, South Korea is so dry, so technical, kaist, what is that design? It's rubbish. No. He comes from one particular side of design, which is a more recent side of industrial design in Korea, which is very technical, which is very engineering focused, though he's dissing people who are way more technical or engineering focused than he is and stuff like that. But the other side of South Korea, if you possess South Korean crafts, ceramics and textiles, you suddenly realize it's astounding, it's magical. So there are some design schools like Hongik, and I was sort of prodding him saying, okay, why don't you tell me about Samsung design schools? So Samsung threw an enormous amount of money to produce a finishing school for design, or one of these sort of sexy elitist design schools which will produce high street fashion, footwear, and all that sort of stuff for really high street shoppers and for feeding affluenza, as it were. So they went to Parsons and they went to Art Center Pasadena and said, give us your curriculum, we want to start a school like yours, that whole sort of consumptive universe, which is another word for tuberculosis, of course. We want to start a design school like that in Seoul. But there is Hongik, which he said, oh, it's arts and crafts. It's arts and crafts. So arts and crafts in the Western paradigm is that old, moth-eaten, it needs to be treated the way the Melbourne Museum treated their old collections, lock them away and air-condition them or something like that. So the arts and crafts of Korea is what is absolutely fantastic because it goes back such a long way. And there are design schools like that. And they produce designers who are just completely astounding. I don't know. It's an aesthetic world. It's the East. And we got a presentation from him, and I just want to correct it, saying that we got a presentation from him where he projected the fact that we're as good as the West. Now that's wrong. I think sometimes, somewhere in this sort of progression of civilization, we've got to put a stop to it, saying, let's look the other way. Let's sort of appreciate. I like that food. I prefer kimchi to fish and chips. Meat and potatoes versus Korean barbecue, okay. That's taste. Taste that goes onto your tongue is the same taste that you see with your eyes. The same complexity that's there in their food is actually there in their aesthetics. And the same complexity that is there in our food or English food is there in English aesthetics. It's bland, it's dry. Dutch aesthetics is all about boiled cabbage. So we've got an encounter with the East, and it is glorious, is what I'm saying. We know that. Sorry. Is it kimchi chan? Oh.
Well, you can see when Soumitri called me up and said, we've got to have this guy, why I had no chance of saying no. It was very good that Kyung-won agreed to come and talk to us. And I've really enjoyed this discussion. It's been great to unpack some bigger ideas that have filtered down from a single discussion into something pretty big, I think. Please join me in thanking, unless there are any more burning questions. Well, there is one more, sorry, we'll allow one more question over here. We've got a little bit, we don't want to... You've got a comment, we'll let you have a comment.
Actually, it's a comment rather than a question. I am a paper maker, and I was at the International Paper Makers Congress in Italy a number of years ago, and it was really interesting that people compete as to who can have the conference, and Korea was there, and they presented so well. They had gone to so much trouble and so much expense. They convinced us that that was a place to have the conference. And we went, and it was fabulous. I mean, they know how to do things really well. But I think we also need to look at their history in regard to why they're functioning as they are functioning. I mean, I think that, their history is relevant to where they are now and the influence of America in regard to how capitalism and the West has been an influence that's been positive in regard to how they've used it, in regard to East and West. It's a wonderful blend, actually, of both in such a strong way. But in regard to the craft, I'd really like to agree. They had the most stunning exhibition of paper clothes. Now, you couldn't tell that they were paper. They just looked like satin and silk and print and whatever. I suggested the National Gallery get them out here, and they were interested in it as well. And we should. We should be looking more at linking, as all of you have been saying, with Asia in a variety of ways, but Korea particularly. Fabulous, wonderful people. And they're very interested in linking with us, obviously. So thank you. It's been wonderful.
Okay, well, do you have the last word?
Let's campaign. So, I'll put in a plug first. There's a project which was started by Berg Publishers in London, who've been gobbled up last week by Bloomsbury, as they do. And it's a project called the Encyclopedia of Asian Design, and I'm one of the editors of the Encyclopedia of Asian Design. So I've sort of entered into this world. It is like the most astounding world. So did you know that in the 11th century, let's not go into the 11th century. If you look at the travelers' journals in the 11th century, there's this book that I've encountered, When Asia Was the World, and it just sends you completely tripping into this complete astounding world of philosophy and craft and aesthetics and beauty and poetry, and it's just endless. So they've got all of that. They themselves have discredited it. From the West, it's been discredited. I can't say we. I'm feeling a bit self-conscious about the we just at this very moment, so I'm going to skip that. When I sort of barrack for the Indian cricket team, everybody says that's wrong. So what I want to say is, why don't we petition? You know, Kate is a bit sort of nervous about what's going to happen at the State of Design next year. There's no funding for the State of Design next year. But what if there were funding for the State of Asian Design? It's the State of Asian Design. It's a festival of the State of Asian Design. How amazing would that be? It's never going to happen. And that's the beauty of it.
On that note, on that thought, please join me in thanking Carolyn, Alex, Jeffrey, Michelle and Soumitri. And thank you very much for coming. Thanks to the Real Estate.